Hi, you're watching Back of the Room with Matthew Gill here with legendary producer, manager George Shapiro, manager Jerry Seinfeld, Andy Kaufman, Carl Reiner formed Shapiro West Productions, executive producer of the Emmy-winning, Peabody-winning, Golden Globe-winning, probably many consider the best television show of all time, Seinfeld.
Well, thank you.
Package specials for Dick Van Dyke, Mary Tyler Moore, Carol Channing, package shows like the Steve Allen Show, executive producer Man on the Moon with Jim Carrey. So, you know, if you're watching this and you're a comedian, is a definite credible source. When you go and see, you know, a stand-up through, when you're looking, are you looking for an emotional connection? Are you looking for a marketability? Are you looking for something extremely unique, or are you looking for someone who, even after you meet them, has a little bit of business acumen that you could see a partnership? I mean, what are the criteria?
Another good question.
Right.
This guy has a very good question. Think about it. The funny thing is, it's a great question because when you go out, you know, we're managers, we go out, we see a lot of acts, go to comedy festivals and so forth.
You see a ton.
And you know, like the closest thing, for me, I mean, everyone has a different connection. Maybe people think about marketability, and but I'm thinking about I love comedy. Mm-hmm. I've always loved comedy, and for having a connection with a comedian, it's the closest thing to falling in love. Mm. When you get that kind of reaction that causes this kind of laughter, this kind of absolute harmony with someone that makes you laugh so much, it's the closest thing to falling in love, right. You know, without the physical part of it. But the emotional connection is huge, very high. So I feel like if I see a comedian, that just puts me away. I had that feeling with Andy, and then with Jerry Seinfeld, because he was so smart. He was so smart and clever, and they didn't use any bad language, because he felt that was the challenge was. And he loves comics, you know, like Richie Pryor. It didn't matter, you know. He didn't matter how dirty a comic was. It doesn't make any difference. Right. But for him, that was his own choice.
When you first saw him in the Comedy Store, did he have any heat on him at that point? Was he just?
He didn't have much. The heat that he had, interesting enough, was other comedians.
Really.
And you really see that the respect that they had. They all came to see his act.
Really.
You know, he was just, you know, was trying to get, you know, nightclub engagements here and there, and working at the small clubs.
Yeah.
And he was so professional, and he always went out the day before, which is the key, you know, because some comics are lazy and they don't do the publicity. But he always went out to every city the day before, got up 6 a.m, did the talk shows, did the press, you know, to get a presence known in the cities. And then you build up a following in that city. But it's all very, very hard work. I think my own feeling, you know, there's a lot of all these classes teaching comedy and so forth, but my feeling is that it has to be innate. You have to have that within you. Then you train, and most of the training actually is bombing and being on stage. That's why I have such overwhelming respect for comedians, because they have the guts to get on stage and not get laughs, because none of them get laughs at the beginning. In fact, Jerry's first time on stage was Catch a Rising Star, and Elaine Boozler was the host of the show, introduced Jerry, and he says, this is his first time on stage. Please welcome Jerry Seinfeld. And Jerry came on stage, and he had his material. He had material about his parents and the beach and traffic and airlines, and he said, my parents, traffic, the beach, the airlines, because he really forgot the material. He just knew the categories that he was going to talk about, and he was just forgot it. And he said, "Thank you." And Elaine said, "That's Jerry Seinfeld, king of the segues." He had some words of wisdom too about it, because he said to be successful in comedy, you just have to care about comedy and shut up and work. When Jerry started out in comedy, he wanted to make sure he would not be diverted. So his jobs, and he was an intelligent guy, could have probably worked in advertising. He took jobs selling umbrellas on the street. selling light bulbs on the telephone, jewelry too. He sold on the street, so he knew that. So he says like backing yourself up to a cliff,
right?
And you have to go this way,
right?
You can't fall off. You have to go, and that's how he set it up, because he had that love and that passion where he knew he didn't want to do anything else. And that's like a triumph. Jerry Seinfeld, a highlight, is where it took us from the time, when we did the pilot, because I wrote all these letters to Brandon Tartikoff, and Jerry was once asked, what's a letter that you would like to have in the Letters of the Century? He said the letter from George Shapiro to Brandon Tartikoff, where I said, this is early, before people knew him very well. In fact, I don't think he did anything more than 6 minutes on the Tonight Show or let him. I said, call me a crazy guy. Dear Brandon, call me a crazy guy, but I think Jerry Seinfeld will soon be having a series on NBC. So when we went out, we finished, it was a #1 show.
Yeah.
And then we had that meeting with Jack Welch and Bob Wright, asking Jerry to do the 10th year.
Yeah.
And this is in Jack Welch's book. Jack Welch, he was the head of General Electric.
Yeah.
And he wrote a little piece of paper, he handed it to Jerry, and it was $5 million an episode for 22 episodes.
Wow.
And then Jerry, we took a little walk, little comedy story. When Jerry was 21 years old, just about to graduate from Queens College, he sat on this bench on 81st Street, Central Park West, with his father, and told him he was going to go into stand-up comedy.
Wow.
And he was a good student. He had a lot of opportunities, probably.
Right.
And his father was supportive, but that's the same bench Howard, me, and Jerry sat when Jerry said, as a stand-up comedian, I know the right time to get off stage when you're getting a standing ovation.
So you do so much for your clients. I mean, you get them in front of them, and you look for opportunities, and you match up opportunities. Was there ever a point in your life where wow, they get all the glory, and I sit back and let them have all the deal, all the hard work
That's really a very good question. First of all, you're thrilled because your initial thrust in the business, when you're a personal manager or an agent, is your whole goal is to get your clients famous, and find properties that they thrive on, and so forth. So one of it worked out well for me. For instance, Andy Kaufman. I was Andy Kaufman's manager. I have a little bit of a loose screw. My partner is more, serious businessman, even though he has a great sense of humor. But I connected with Andy Kaufman as soon as I saw him. I saw him at the Improv.
Here?
I saw him at the Improv here. Actually, Carl Reiner had seen him in New York at Catch a Rising Star, and he came in, and we were having lunch. Carl was stayed friendly with Dick Van Dyke, so I was having lunch with Carl Reiner and Dick Van Dyke at the NBC commissary. And Carl came back from New York the day before, and he said, George, I saw this guy that's the most bizarre, wonderful, incredible performer I've ever seen. He did everything. And Carl, who has total audio recall, he just did Andy's act. He did everything except he didn't sing Elvis. He didn't imitate Elvis. He did everything else. He was so excited about it. And Dick, just loved hearing the stories about Andy and what he did on stage. And then, coincidentally, late in the afternoon, I got a call from Bud Friedman, who owns the Improv. And he said Andy works a lot at the Improv in my place in New York. I'm going to bring him out.
Right.
I think you should take a look at him.
Huh.
He was flying him out. The same day, I heard Carl do his whole act.
Wow.
And then Bud invited me out to see him at the Improv.
Wow.
So I said, oh, definitely. Even though I know his act, it may have a different slant on it than Carl.
So that's how you can get represented by George Shapiro. You need to have third parties selling you, the best in the business. You need to have Carl Reiner doing your act, and Bud Friedman calling a manager saying, you got to see this guy. Good luck.
And one of the weirdest things for me in working with Andy was when he went into the Tony Clifton character.
Right.
Because when he did Tony Clifton, who was an alter ego lounge singer, obnoxious, put down the audience, Richard Belzer, thank you for inspiring him. It was actually, Andy said Richard Belzer, because he worked at Catch a Rising Star all the time. He was very rough on the audience.
Oh, okay.
So Andy really liked that aspect of his personality, and he integrated. Richard knows that.
Okay.
That was one of the things that inspired Andy into the Tony Clifton character. But when he got into it, it was so deep that I couldn't control him. He was out of control once at a Dinah Shore show, breaking the eggs and everything. And they asked him to leave the show. They escorted him out, but I couldn't reach him.
Really?
No, there was no sign of Andy Kaufman there.
Wow.
About Andy, and the fact is, and that was a thrill working with him. I mean, we had so many incredible periods of excitement, especially like Carnegie Hall.
Right.
He did Carnegie Hall.
You produced that show?
Yeah, I was with the executive producer of that. The first one, Howard and I, my partner and I, we produced a great special for ABC. That was the first one. The second one was Andy Kaufman at Carnegie Hall.
Yeah.
And it was a magnificent show. He had the Rockettes and the Mormon Tabernacle Choir and Santa Claus coming off from the ceiling.
Yeah.
And then he invited everyone out for cookies and milk. The whole audience of 2,800 people.
Wow.
He rented the New York School of Printing. And he busted them out. The people couldn't believe it. They thought he was kidding. There's buses out here. We're going to continue the party. And they had a party. And at the party, they had a couple of rock acts and some mimes, and
Wow.
Andy continued wrestling another girl. And then, at the end of that night, it was 3 a.m, he said, now we're going to continue at the Staten Island Ferry at 2 p.m. tomorrow, whoever wants to come. So about 300 people showed up, and
Wow.
they went on a ferry ride, and he got him ice cream, and they continued the wrestling. He loved wrestling women. Because he was shy. It was a nice way to get close. This is fun.
Yeah.
What a business. Show business. I can't believe it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed it.